I built this cool sliding mount for an overhead camera arm that I designed in a previous video. This allows me to easily adjust the horizontal position of the camera by just pushing on the arm. If you're interested to know more about the camera arm, I'll link to that video in the description below. I'll also include links to all the parts that I used in this build. I bought this linear rail kit on Amazon. It's 1000mm long with two chrome-plated carbon steel bars that are 20mm in diameter. It comes with mounting brackets and 4 bearing blocks that slide onto the 2 bars. This thing is super beefy. I was kind of surprised how heavy it was when it arrived. Maybe it's a bit overkill for this application, but on the plus side it's rock solid. I cut a piece of 1/8 inch aluminum sheet to build the carriage that will attach to the bearing blocks. I sized this to fit a bearing block in each corner and have enough space in the middle for a piece of 2040 aluminum extrusion, which is what my camera arm mounts to. Despite my best cutting efforts, the aluminum sheet isn't perfectly square. I scribed a line at the top of one side that still had the factory edge on it. I spent a while measuring and marking the other edges. I drilled one hole for each bearing block so I could test mount them all at the same time and better determine where to drill the rest of the mounting holes. The bearing blocks have a threaded M6 hole in each corner. There isn't a lot of room for error when mounting these. If one of the bearing blocks is too far out of alignment, you won't be able to get it onto the bar. If I was doing this again, I think I would design a 2D model in CAD software and print it on a piece of paper so I could stick it to the aluminum sheet and use a punch to mark each hole. Or even better, just have the aluminum sheet laser cut so no manual cutting or drilling is needed at all. After a while, I got the bearing blocks mounted properly. What worked well for me was leaving the bearing blocks loose and sliding the assembly onto the bars before tightening down the blocks onto the sheet. Now we're ready to mount the piece of 2040 extrusion that serves as the quick connect base for the camera arm. This attaches by drilling holes vertically through the center of the aluminum sheet and using M5 screws and M5 T-nuts. I decided to mount the bars on 2 pieces of 2020 extrusions so that I could get the alignment adjusted perfectly at my workbench before putting the assembly onto the wall. I had originally planned to mount the bars directly on the wall, but decided that it would be a pain trying to get everything aligned properly while trying to hold this thing in place. It weighs in the neighborhood of 15 pounds. I drilled holes in the 2020 extrusions for screws to fasten the assembly to the wall. Then I used M6 screws and T-nuts to mount the linear rail bars to the aluminum extrusions. Sliding the carriage back and forth helped me dial in the bar positioning before tightening everything down. Now I have a complete assembly that can be mounted onto the wall with some deck screws. I think a screw with a flat head that's larger than the ones that I'm using would be a better choice, but I don't have any on hand. To allow the screws to seat nicely against the aluminum extrusion, I'm drilling out some T-nuts that I can use upside down, sort of like a washer. I put some small strips of wood on the wall to make sure I could sink screws into something solid. After getting one side into place, I threw a level onto the carriage while putting a screw in the other side. I'm really happy with the result. The linear rails are super solid and the camera arm can be moved around really easily. The only thing that I'm not a fan of is how heavy the overall assembly is. I might experiment with different designs since I want to recreate this setup at my other workbench. This has really transformed my ability to film at my solder station and get angles without having a tripod in the way. If you enjoyed this build, please give the video a like and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.